Was I wrong for what I did? Honestly, I've replayed this entire scenario in my head 1,000 times, and I still don't know if I handled it perfectly, but I know I handled it justly. What would you have done if your girlfriend, the woman you thought you'd spend your life with, dumped you the moment you lost everything, only to crawl back when she realized what she'd given up? Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because I truly need to know if I'm the bad guy here. Let me take you back to where it all began. To a time when I genuinely believed I had found my soulmate. Her name is Jessica, and when I first met her, I was absolutely smitten. She was stunning, long dark hair, eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a smile that could light up a room. We met at a mutual friend's party, and there was an instant connection. We talked for hours that night, discovering shared interests in obscure indie bands, and a mutual love for hiking. She seemed so down-to-earth, so genuine, and utterly captivating. At the time, I was doing incredibly well for myself. I had started a tech company straight out of college, and after years of grinding, it had finally taken off. We were in the process of securing a major round of funding, and my personal net worth was, well, significant. I wasn't ostentatious about it, but I certainly wasn't struggling. I drove a nice car, lived in a beautiful apartment in the city, and could afford pretty much anything I wanted. Jessica knew I was comfortable, but I always tried to keep the specifics of my wealth under wraps, mainly because I wanted someone to like me for me, not for my bank account. We dated for about a year, and it was a whirlwind romance. We traveled, we explored new restaurants, we spent countless nights just talking, laughing, and dreaming about our future. She was always there, seemingly supportive and loving. She'd bring me coffee when I was pulling all-nighters at the office, listen patiently to my endless monologues about coding and business strategies, and generally made me feel like the most important person in her world. I introduced her to my family, and they adored her. My mother, in particular, was thrilled, constantly dropping hints about grandchildren and weddings. Jessica even bonded with my sister, which was a huge deal because my sister is notoriously picky about who I date. Everything felt perfect. We moved in together into my apartment, a spacious place with incredible views of the city skyline. She brought her minimalist furniture and her vibrant personality, and suddenly my bachelor pad felt like a home. We talked about marriage, about buying a house with a yard for a dog, about starting a family. I was so incredibly happy, so certain that I had found the one. Then, the world decided to pull the rug out from under me. It started subtly, with a few glitches in our software, then a major competitor launching a strikingly similar product at a lower price point. Before I knew it, our funding round fell through. The investors got cold feet, spooked by the market changes and our recent setbacks. It wasn't just a minor hiccup, it was a catastrophic blow. Within a matter of weeks, my company, my baby, was on the brink of collapse. I poured all my personal savings into keeping it afloat, laid off a significant portion of my staff, and worked tirelessly, trying to salvage what I could. But it was like trying to stop a tidal wave with a teacup. The market turned against us, our client base dwindled, and the inevitable happened. We had to shut down. I lost everything. And I mean everything. My personal investments were tied up in the company, my savings were gone, and I was suddenly faced with a mountain of debt. The nice car? Repossessed. The beautiful apartment? I had to break the lease and face steep penalties, planning to move into a tiny, cheap place on the outskirts of town. I went from being a successful, wealthy entrepreneur to being practically broke, all within the span of a few excruciating months. Through it all, I tried to be honest with Jessica. I told her about the struggles, the long hours, the sleepless nights. I shared my fears and my anxieties. I remember sitting her down one evening, after a particularly brutal day of layoffs, and telling her the full extent of the damage. I explained that I had lost almost everything, that we'd have to move, that our lavish lifestyle was over. I looked into her eyes, searching for understanding, for comfort, for the same unwavering support she had always shown. What I saw wasn't comfort or even sympathy. It was a cold, calculating gaze. Her expression hardened, and a subtle shift occurred. The warmth in her eyes was replaced by something distant, almost disappointed. She didn't say much that night, just a few platitudes about how things would get better, but her voice lacked conviction. Over the next few weeks, The change in her was undeniable. She became withdrawn, irritable, and constantly on her phone. She started spending more time out with friends, and when she was home, she was often short with me. The playful banter, the loving touches, the shared dreams, they all evaporated. I tried to talk to her, to understand what was happening, but she'd just brush me off, saying she was stressed or tired. I was devastated, not just by the loss of my business, but by the slow, painful realization that the woman I loved was abandoning me when I needed her most. One evening, after I had secured a lease on a tiny, one-bedroom apartment in a less-than-desirable neighborhood, I told her it was time to start packing. I tried to make light of it, saying we'd make it an adventure, a fresh start. Her response was chilling. "I'm not moving with you," she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Ich zirte her. Dumpfunde." "What do you mean you're not moving with me? We're a team, Jessica. We'll get through this together." She scoffed. "A team? What team, Mark? You have nothing left. You're broke. You lost everything. What kind of future can you offer me?" My heart shattered into a million pieces. The woman I had loved, the woman I had planned a life with, was telling me, in no uncertain terms, that her love was conditional on my financial status. She packed her bags that night, not even bothering to help me box up our shared belongings. She just left, walked out the door with a cold goodbye, leaving me alone in the shell of what was once our home, surrounded by the remnants of my shattered life. The next few months were a blur of pain, grief, and relentless hard work. I moved into that small apartment, took on odd jobs, and started meticulously rebuilding my life from scratch. I immersed myself in coding, in networking, in learning from my mistakes. I swore to myself that I would never again let myself be so vulnerable, so naive. I cut off contact with Jessica completely. It hurt, immensely, but I knew I needed to heal. And she was a constant reminder of the betrayal. Friends and family were incredibly supportive, and with their help, I slowly started to piece myself back together. I landed a job at a promising startup, initially in a junior role, but I worked my way up quickly. My experience, even with the failure of my own company, proved valuable. I learned to be smarter, more cautious, and incredibly resilient. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let her back in? Would you have been forgiving? Or would you have stood your ground? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Fast forward 3 years. A lot can change in 3 years. That promising startup I joined? It exploded. We developed a groundbreaking AI platform, secured massive investments, and eventually, were acquired by a tech giant for an astronomical sum. And because I had been one of the earliest employees and held significant equity, I found myself, once again, incredibly wealthy. Not just comfortable, but genuinely, ridiculously wealthy. This time, I was smarter about it. I diversified my investments, bought a stunning new house, a proper house, not just an apartment, and even started a small charity. I was living a good life, a fulfilling life, surrounded by genuine friends and a new, wonderful partner named Sarah, who loved me for exactly who I was, flaws and all. Sarah was everything Jessica wasn't. Kind, compassionate, incredibly intelligent, and completely uninterested in my bank account. We were planning a future together. A real future, built on trust and mutual respect. Then, out of the blue, I got an email. It was from Jessica. I almost deleted it without opening. My finger hovered over the trash icon, but a morbid curiosity, or perhaps a lingering echo of the pain she had caused, made me click it open. The email was long, rambling, and full of apologies. She had heard about my success, of course. News travels fast in our circles. She talked about how much she regretted her decisions, how she had made a terrible mistake, how she had been confused and stressed back then. She spoke of missing our time together, missing me. She said she had realized her true feelings and wanted to see me, to talk, to potentially rekindle what we had. My stomach churned as I read it. The audacity, the sheer nerve of her. For a moment, a tiny, almost imperceptible part of me felt a flicker of the old affection. The memory of the good times. But it was quickly overshadowed by the searing pain of her betrayal, the coldness of her departure. I thought about the months I spent heartbroken and alone, the struggles I faced, the way she had abandoned me without a second thought. I thought about Sarah, who had stood by me when I had nothing, who loved me unconditionally. I decided to meet her, not because I wanted her back, but because I needed closure, and perhaps a little bit of vindication. We agreed to meet at a relatively public, but discreet cafe. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked tired, her once vibrant energy dimmed. She wasn't dressed in the expensive clothes she used to favor, and there was a desperate edge in her eyes. We sat down, and she launched into her practiced apology again, detailing how hard her life had been since we broke up, how she had made bad choices, how she now understood the value of true love over superficial things. She even shed a few tears, but they felt forced, rehearsed. I let her talk, just observing, my face a mask of polite indifference. When she finally finished, she looked at me, her eyes brimming with a hopeful, expectant light. "So Mark," she said, her voice soft, "can we try again? I know I messed up, but I've changed. I truly miss you, and I know we can be happy together." That was my moment. The moment to finally put everything to rest. I looked at her calmly and said, "Jessica, do you remember the night you left me? The night I told you I had lost everything, and you told me you weren't moving with me because I had nothing to offer you?" She flinched, her eyes dropping. "Yes, but I was so young, so foolish." I cut her off. "No, Jessica. You weren't foolish. You were honest. You showed me exactly who you were. You chose to leave when things got tough, when I was at my lowest point. And that choice, your choice, defined everything." I leaned forward slightly. "Do you know what I've been through since then? The struggle, the hard work, the rebuilding? Do you know I met someone who loves me for who I am, regardless of my bank account? Someone who would never abandon me when I needed them most." She started to protest, to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "No. Let me finish. I'm incredibly successful now, Jessica. Far more successful than I ever was when we were together. I have everything I could ever want. And not a single bit of that success, that happiness, includes you." Her face crumpled. The hope in her eyes was replaced by a dawning realization, then by a bitter resentment. "So this is it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You're just going to throw away what we had because of a mistake?" I smiled, a small, sad smile. "There's nothing to throw away, Jessica. You threw it away 3 years ago. You made your choice. And I made mine. I chose to move on, to heal, and to build a life with someone who actually cares about me, not my bank balance." I stood up. "I wish you well, Jessica. But there is no us anymore. There never will be." I left her sitting there, alone at the table, just as she had left me alone in my apartment all those years ago. There was no grand speech, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet, definitive ending. As I walked out, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was still carrying. It wasn't about revenge, it was about self-respect. It was about choosing to protect my peace and my future. I went straight to Sarah after that, and held her close, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The whole experience, as painful as it was, taught me invaluable lessons about true partnership, about distinguishing genuine love from conditional affection. It taught me that sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find out who truly cares, and who is just along for the ride. I often wonder what became of Jessica, but truthfully, it doesn't matter anymore. My life is good, it's full, and it's built on solid ground. So that's my story. It was a tough road, but I came out stronger on the other side. Like this video if you were on my side in this whole mess. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on everything in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.